What is happening, y'all? Cowboy here, and welcome to my review of Rise of the Ronin. Now, initially, this is a game that I was quite excited for. The idea of Team Ninja bringing the depth of combat that they're usually known for into an open world was a very exciting prospect. And unfortunately, after playing it for roughly 25 hours, I've come to the conclusion that this game has more in common with Assassin's Creed than it does with Nioh. Unfortunately, it just completely failed to grasp me, and I don't think it would go too far as to describe it as we have Ghost of Tsushima at home. So with that in mind, in this review, I'm going to be talking about all the areas where I feel, unfortunately, the game just fell flat. There's something to enjoy here. I mean, I think some people will end up having fun with this, but this was very much not the game for me. And either way, let's jump into why. And the first thing I want to talk about is going to be the combat, because when I think Team Ninja, I don't think graphics or story, I think combat. I think Nioh 2, Wolong, Stranger of Paradise. I think about the in-depth combat in those games and what drew me into them. And that is the first big point where I have a problem with this game. Now, the combat is fairly simple now. To go in-depth into this, we just press square, and that's going to do our full combo. Our combo will change up if we pick a different stance. But we're still just pressing square. That's it. Just press square, do the combo. Besides that, each stance will have a charge move. So like that's a charge move. That's a charge move. That's a charge move. And we have advanced moves. So we just move forward a little bit. And this is just like a little gap closer. Jumping attacks are just a plunge. We don't have sprinting attacks. And besides that, we have like our bow, our ranged stuff, and we can throw out the grappling hook. Now, on top of that, our stances also have little specials, little martial arts. For example, in this stance, I have a little windstorm. I have this thing which does extra damage if enemies are blocking. This stance is leveled up, so I even have a aerial thing on it. If I go to a different stance, I have like a discount EI strike, and then I have this, which is like a dodge and attack. And then in my other stance, I have this little somersault, and then a thing that blocks attacks and then does some damage to ki. And so on a surface level, it seems like, whoa, hey, hang on, what's wrong with this? We got all these stances. There's a lot going on here with the combat. And it unfortunately boils down to the stance system and how it functions. So we have 3 style types, Jin, Ten, and Chi. Now there's more stances than just those 3. In fact, if I go over to Nodachi, you can see that I have two different Ten stances here. But all the stances are classified into those 3 categories. Now, Jin is going to be effective against lightweight weapons like sabers and ineffective against heavy weapons like odachis. Ten is going to be effective against medium weapons like katana and ineffective against lightweight weapons like the sabers. And then lastly, we have Chi, and this is meant for fighting against heavy weapons like odachis and ineffective against normal weapons like katanas. And so we have a rock, paper, scissors type system with all of the weapons. And you can actually see this when you're targeting enemies. If I can get close enough to where I can target one. Let's see. Think you're hostile? There we go. You can see how I have arrows. This is neutral, negative advantage, positive advantage. And you want to use the correct stance because using the correct stance means you're going to be doing bonus ki damage. And that is going to be the main gist of combat, is damaging enemies to then hurt their ki. And so what you end up happening is you have a combat loop where essentially I'm going to be spamming my attack, and then I'm going to end up doing a martial art. And then at that point, the enemy is probably just going to hyper armor and slap me through my stuff, at which point I need to defend and get off a deflect until I panic them, at which point their health is like surrounded in a red aura. And then I continue the combo again until I get a critical hit. And so that is the gist of the combat. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple. You're not really stance dancing or anything like that. Besides that, we have the standard stuff that you would come to expect from Nioh, like sniping people for headshots. And stealth is actually pretty strong here, which, hence the Assassin's Creed comparison. You can do quite a lot with stealthing. We're just going to go through and try to stealth this camp here real fast here. After I stealth kill a guy, I get like a brief window where I can stealth kill other enemies for a split second. And of course, I could just run away. I could run out, wait for them to lose aggro, and then re-enter combat and try to stealth again. So very kind of freedom of approach to taking down the base. But let me get to where I have like one enemy I'm fighting instead of multiple. So with this guy, I'm going to switch to the right stance. Now I have stance advantage, And all I really need to do now is just attack and try to not get killed by his claws. I hate the claw guys. I can never hit the timing on their parries. You can see the hyper armor is pretty aggressive in how it works. I can use my special, which just takes a while to build up, and it'll put your blade on fire and it'll give you infinite ki for the duration, but enemies can still just hyper armor through it. So unfortunately you know, it doesn't feel like a very strong, like, this is my ultimate, you know, because I get it up and I'm like, infinite ki, fire katanas, and then this thing just doesn't care anyway. For a more normal enemy, I'm whiffing the shit out of my parries right now. So that is a panic. Now that he's panicked, I can go in. Like I said, eventually he's just going to get hyper armor. And I gotta get parries until I lower that bar, take a chunk of his health, and then the cycle repeats. Basic enemies, you're only gonna have to hit one. Stronger enemies, you're gonna have to do this twice for. But so you have almost like a back and forth with the combat where, you know, you're just trying to get the enemy to open up so that you can get that critical. And on a surface level, it almost seems similar to Sekiro in the sense that it's, you know, parry-centric combat. We're looking to get off a parry on enemies so we can open them up. But I feel like the combat flow here just isn't very good. And I'm going to attack, I'm going to do my thing. There we go. That's a basic enemy. Ended up taking him down very quick. And you can definitely see the Nioh inspiration in some of these animations as we're fighting. But some of the enemies, the combat flow just doesn't really work that well. I think because of the fact that they just get hyper armor constantly. When you bottom out somebody's ki, you can chuck them with the grappling hook if you want instead of doing an execute. Roughly does about the same damage. We also have something similar to ki pulsing. You can see a gauge over there on the right. I can tap R1 after attacking, and that will throw the blood that is on my blade off. And then I can, you can see it builds up in combat, and that'll get me back some of my ki. So you can parry at any time, so even if I'm mid-attack combo and the enemy decides that he wants to attack, if I have quick enough reaction, I could hit the button and interrupt their attack, even if they decide they're going to hyper armor through me. Let's see, I think we have like one more guy here, yeah. But, you know, the combat just doesn't grasp me the way that their other titles have. I think it's very much, you know, oh, I pick my stance, and then it's all about, can I get the parry off? If I can't get the parry off, there we go, we got him. And then after you beat a camp, you know, time advances and we now have it. But so that's kind of the gist of the combat. You know, you have a rock, paper, scissors type system, and then a little bit of a tug and war where you're tug of war, where you're trying to, you know, work down the ki while also trying to protect your own ki and working your ki pulsing. And it seems like there's some depth there, but I feel like this is just a downgrade from Wolong, even where Wolong, at least I had the spirit gauge and I was looking at how can I, you know, am I going to weave in magic, or do I want to weave in a strong attack to expend all that spirit, or weave in martial arts, or what am I going to do? Here it's just, you know, I attack enemy to get down ki, I get critical, I do it again. And this issue is only exacerbated on higher difficulties. On normal, the stronger enemies will take 2, the basic enemies will take 1. On hard, they'll take like 3, and bosses, you're going to have to do this back and forth 4 to 5 times, which ends up being kind of just more tedious than fun. Like right now, you're seeing we're playing on normal, but it just ends up being this back and forth of like, okay, it's my turn to deflect. Okay, now I get to do a critical. Oh, okay, you're going to attack a bunch. Okay, now I get to do a critical. And it just doesn't feel that engaging to me compared to the combat in their own previous titles. Moving on from the combat, talking a little bit about the open world and the Assassin's Creed comparison, this is what I would like to describe as a checklist RPG. And what I mean by this is quite literally, we get checklists. As we do stuff in zones, hey, look, there's 2 more Veiled Edge banners, and I did my public order. There's 2 fugitives I can find, a landmark, a shrine, 2 cats, and 4 treasure chests. And if I do all of that, I'm going to get a strength point. And personally, I just don't really vibe with that. You know, I'm okay with some markers on the map. You know, we obviously had this in Rebirth, and I ended up going through all the stuff there and trying to figure it out. But there's something about the way it's presented here where it's just like a literal checklist that I'm going down that just doesn't really mesh that well with me, I guess. You know, I think part of it is the fact that the exploration in the world and the way it works. So as you're going through, like I just did this public order thing here. By doing that, it's unveiled some more stuff on the map. So like I can see, hey, over here is a bounty that I can go get. And as you do stuff on the map, more activities will unveil themselves. So it's kind of like the checklist just keeps growing. Like, hey, here's more stuff that you didn't know. And I think part of the problem with that is like on one hand, yeah, it shows you where everything is at. On the other, it doesn't really encourage you to just organically explore the world and discover this stuff. Like any zone that I go to, I'm going to go, like, let's say I was going to go up here. I would, oh, okay, I can't see anything in this zone. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the public order. That's going to unveil some stuff. Then I'm going to grab my Veiled Edges so I have fast travel. That's going to unveil some stuff. And then I'm going to finish doing that zone. And it's not so much the existence of a checklist, it's that even the approach you take to the open world very much is go down the checklist, you know? And just the way it's presented here doesn't work. And I know it sounds shitty because even in Rebirth, you know, first thing I would do in Rebirth is I would find the towers to unveil the map to figure out what I wanted to do. But even then I don't know, it just felt better. Just the way it flows here does not really feel that good. Talking more to the Assassin's Creed comparison, I will say stealth in the game does feel pretty good if you're the type of player that likes to play these games mainly through stealth. You can, until you get discovered, you can stealth a majority of the content, which I'll do after I kill this guy. Yeah, like that was just me pressing square a bunch, tapping R1 occasionally, and that was it. That was the combat. But so, in terms of the open world activities too, they feel more like I am. Oh, great! Didn't get it. They feel more like I'm just collectible type stuff too, versus like particularly engaging stuff. Talking a little bit about them and what we're doing. Like, so if I pull up the marker here, pull up the area info. No, let me go here. So public orders are just what I'm doing. You like tackle the stuff. The fugitives just mean there's like a boss in the area. Sometimes you get a style from them. The cat, you walk up and touch the cat. The landmark, you visit the landmark. The shrine, you walk up to the shrine and get a skill point. The treasure chest, you walk up and collect a treasure. It's very much like collecting. It's just collecting stuff versus a emphasis on actual like engaging activities. So ultimately, I just didn't really enjoy the open world activities. I mean, and I know it's almost an unfair comparison to look at Ghost of Tsushima, because that's a first party Sony IP, you know, but they're both open world samurai games. They both have a very similar vibe, and I think part of it is when I played Ghost, the way that Ghost presented the exploration in the world, it felt very organic in how I would run around, and you know, I would like see a fox off in my peripheral vision, and then I'm like, oh, I want to follow this fox. Whereas here, I do a camp, and then it's like, okay, what do I want to do? Oh, there's a cat. Okay, I'll mark it and I'll auto run, and I'll get the cat done. And yeah, I could also just run over there and do the cat. I don't have to auto run, but just the approach in general, I found to not be as enjoyable. There's also some like weird open world collision stuff, like, you know, it feels very much like I should be able to jump on this boat to get on that roof, but I can't. So there's just some I guess we could call it goofy collision at times. In terms of other stuff with the open world, it is a Souls-light. This is something I've had a lot of people asking about. And what I mean by this is you have two different bars, which you can see right now in the top right. We have general experience and we have karma. Karma is dropped on death. General experience is not. Right now, this enemy, I think this is the guy with the vendetta. But if I get a critical on this guy, I'll earn back the karma that I dropped on death. So I'm just kind of pounding away. Gonna kill me again, probably. The rifle executes are pretty fun. But yeah, just the open world didn't really grasp me with the activities offered here. Just talking about the story a little bit while we continue to fight. That's an area that was actually quite surprising to me, because I was really excited about the idea of exploring Edo-era Japan and characters like Takasugi and Katsura. You know, I'm a big Gintama fan. I was like, you know, I want to see how these characters are portrayed. I want to learn more about them. And unfortunately, even the story didn't even really grasp me, which, you know, I didn't really have high expectations because it's Team Ninja and they're not really known for story. But I think a big part of it is the way the game approaches the story feels fairly non-committal. And what I mean by this is we would like have a showdown with somebody, and then, you know, not only would the boss escape, but like afterwards it's just like, oh, well, hey, actually we're friends now, or hey, we escaped, but it turns out that you know, he actually just had a difference of opinion. You should go hear him out and do a quest for him. And so it didn't feel like a lot of the choices I was making in the world really mattered, which is weird because the game even has a feature that you unlock where you can go back and replay story sections to pick different outcomes, but like majority of the time people weren't really dying, or there weren't serious consequences in the story anyway. So you know, I'm not even really sure the existence of that feature, why it's even necessary. But I think a big part of it is just them, you know, grounding this more in realism. Like, nobody plays the Nioh games for story, but like I actually kind of enjoy the story in Nioh too. And here it's just, you know, it's very grounded, it's very realistic, and I think it lost part of the Team Ninja charm because of that. Talking about the visuals a little bit, and you know, I think we need to be clear here. Typically, nobody is playing Team Ninja games for the visuals. You know, we play these games for the combat. But regardless, I think it's worth mentioning. In general, I just don't think the visuals look that good here. Even just as we're running right here and kind of looking out at the looking out in the distance. I mean, the amount of popping going on is pretty fucking egregious. And I'm typically not somebody that ever talks about popping, but the way like trees are appearing and then the shadows are appearing, it doesn't look good. And I think a big part of it is looking at their other titles, looking at Nioh, looking at Wolong, looking even at Stranger Paradise. I think those being more fantasy involved, I think the art was a lot better. And I think this being more grounded in reality, it takes away a little bit of that flair, and everything, you know, everything is, this is just real Japan. This is real Japan. Look at real Japan. And Instead, I think the art style just ends up having a rather flat look. And frankly, I think a look that isn't comparable for a PS5 exclusive, you know? Like, those of you that watch the channel know I'm not a graphics snob. I play fucking 2D indie games all the time. I don't give a shit about graphics, but, you know, when you're going to market something as, you know, this is the next big PS5 open world samurai game, and we're seeing textures that look like they're PS3 era in some cases, and pop-in and shadowing, like, look at the water, man. It just, frankly, it doesn't look good. I just don't think it looks good. And I mentioned it in the preview video, but the horse riding also does not look good at all. Let me pick something far out, and we'll ride our horse over there. The horse, at times, the horse straight up, the horse looks like somebody shoved a stick through its asshole and it's just pushing the horse in a direction. Like the way the legs kick back, I don't know what's going on with the horse. The way the head just bobs, it looks very mechanical. And I think that also isn't helping the case of the visuals here. The horse auto run is kind of a blessing and a curse because, you know, on one hand, it's going to get me to the next checkpoint on my map even faster. On the other, it's also going to discourage more organic exploration because why would I want to run there when I can just tell my horse to bring me? It is kind of fun running it through town. It'll just trample people because the AI is a little goofy at times. Oh, they jumped out of the way. We almost had a trample there. But yeah, I mean, the visuals in general, they don't elicit feeling of like, wow, this is beautiful. Talking about audio, I think audio design was top notch here. I think honestly, the audio was probably the best portion of this game. The clang when you get off to flex is very good. The sound of, you know, the music beats that pick up, like very on point for what I'd expect from Team Ninja. Like unironically, the music and audio design is probably the best part of this game to me, because a lot of other areas just feel like they fell short. And I think that's kind of ultimately the problem with the game. You know, everything you're seeing right now, all of this footage, this is all based on, this is performance mode, which, like, I mean, that kind of pop-in happening on performance mode, that's fucking rough, man. But as I played this game, I think one of the big thoughts I couldn't help but having is, honestly, I don't know who this game was created for. Because you have combat that is, you know, very simplified compared to what fans of Team Ninja's previous titles are known for, so they're going to be a little bit disappointed. At the same time, you have a skill tree and items that are basically pulled out of Nioh that your more casual fans aren't going to want. You know, we have the Nioh loot here. You know, oh, hey, I got 7.4% solo attempt defense and 6.6% key recovery when I counter spark. Bro, casuals don't give a fuck about this. If I asked my neighbor who like plays Assassin's Creed games if he cared about this, he would be like, what's that? What does it do? He's not going to give a shit. It's not going to matter to him. And then we look at our stat tree. The stat tree is fucking weird, to be honest. We have skill points and then individual stat points like strength, dex, charisma. But you end up leveling all the trees because once you get to a certain point, you know, this needs 5 strength points. This needs 2. That needs 1. This needs 3 dex points. That needs 4 dex points. And those come in so sparingly that you end up just spreading your base points around and leveling up the other trees because, hey, this actually costs regular skill points. I can get that. But even then, you know, oh, I went from 9% up to 18% on my acquisition rate. Oh, hell yeah, 9% reduced damage taken by allies. I can upgrade it to 18. Or, ooh, 7.5% more acquisition of item drops from enemies. You know, it's just the arbitrary numbers that you know, Nioh players are used to, but those are back in a way that just doesn't really appeal to the audience I think this game is for. And I think ultimately that's kind of what I feel here, is it's just this game is in a very weird spot where the combat that you usually come for in Team Ninja games is not here, but the convoluted loot and the convoluted skill tree that is going to appeal to the typical Team Ninja players, that's here. Your casual audience isn't going to really be drawn into that. And in general, I feel like the more casual audience are drawn into games to an extent for graphics. And I don't think they're going to be graphically impressed here. And ultimately, it just leaves us with a open world that I'm not sure who the hell this was designed for. I mean, there's a couple good things. Like I said, audio design, you can turn on auto collect. That's really good. There's an accessibility option where you can press one button and it'll go through the entire combo. So people that struggle with multiple button presses can get to experience it. The fashion, there's anytime you find a piece of armor, it's like added to a wardrobe and you can just put it on. So my character has been locked with this look for like the last 10 hours, just, going for a Ronin type thing. But, ultimately, I feel like the game just falls short in too many areas. And, as much as I hate to reduce it to a meme, it very much does just kind of give big, we have Ghost of Tsushima at home vibes. So either way, I'm going to wrap things up here. Thanks for checking it out, I guess. I'll have a couple Let's Play episodes coming just to give y'all a more raw look at the game. But I mean, I did not finish this, and I don't plan on finishing it. If I had to give this a score, I don't think I would. I don't know. It's so aggressively average. Like, it's not outright bad in anything, but it sure doesn't wow me in anything. I would probably go for, like, the ACG scoring metric and put this in, like, in between wait for a sale, wait for a deep sale. It's just, I don't know. I don't think this is going to do very well, but either way, those are my thoughts. Make of that what you will. And yeah, I'll catch y'all next time.